Shall we start?
Yes, Gaurav, we can.
Okay. So, uh, okay, let's start. The agenda of today's session is that we'll be discussing the potential of backend development with startups and MNCs. I've worked with both the ecosystems, whether it's a startup or an MNC, and I'll be sharing my experience, like what kind of things you can expect while going for a startup or an MNC for a backend development role. Before jumping to that, let's talk about me. So I am Gaurav, and currently I'm working with Delta Airlines Global Tech Hub as a senior developer. I've graduated from NIT Silchar, and I have around 6 years of experience. Started my career with SAP Labs, stayed there for around 4 years, then moved to few startups, worked there, and currently I'm with Delta Airlines. And apart from that, I have mentored students and on different platforms. So that is the thing about me. The next is I want to know few details about uh, you guys before moving forward. So I am putting couple of questions in the meeting. You can go to that activities, and there you can cast your votes. So first question is, what is your current experience? Okay. So those who are finding it difficult, go to the activity section. You can see that triangle, square, and circle, and you can click on that and find that poll there. Okay. The next question which I want to ask is that what is your target company? If you aspire to be in Mang, if you in other product-based MNCs, if you wants to work with startups. So what exactly is your target environment which you are looking for? Okay. The next question is like, are you willing to work in a fast-paced environment? This is a binary question, zero or one, like yes or no. Okay. And the last question is, what is your preparation status? So, are you in the starting phase of your preparation, or you have some? knowledge about the concepts and algorithms which we use in the industry. Okay, so our majority of audience is either student and fresher. Uh, the target companies are product-based companies, including Mang. Most of have intermediate preparation, and everyone, like majority of you guys, are willing to work in a fast-paced environment. Okay, what we'll be covering in this session is that what is the preparation topics or the areas which we need to cover while preparing for a startup or an MNC, because both of these areas have a similar kind of expectation from a candidate which, who is going to join them as a part of the company. Second thing is what is the expectation which a company or a startup has from a candidate. And the last point which we want to cover is like what are the pros and cons while working with a MNC and working with a startup. Uh, Before going further, if anyone has any questions, do let me know so that we can discuss that and then later move on to the next slides. Okay. So if there is no questions, then we'll move ahead. Like, since you guys have mentioned that you guys are, most of you guys are in intermediate situation of preparation. Most of you guys are aware of the kind of expectation a company has from a candidate. Now, preparation for companies and startup doesn't vary much, because the common area or common objective for a MNC and startup is that they want to hire the best talent in the given constraint which they have. Constraint can be multiple constraints like job location, the salary range, the kind of work environment a company or startup can provide to a candidate. So these are the couple of basic things on which a candidate can evaluate a company, and same way a company or a startup evaluate a candidate. Now, whenever you guys are appearing or preparing for a particular target company, first and foremost thing I'll like to give a heads up that don't keep of your focus on one specific company, because there are a lot of scenarios which works when you are going for an interview. So if you are like targeting a specific company, then there are higher chances that you might get disappointed. I'll suggest that keep option open and have a list of 5 to 7 companies where you want to work. There are lots of companies with the similar kind of things which you are looking for. So always target a set of companies before going to the interviews. Now, when we have when we start preparing, there are lots of things which are there on internet, and we have abundance of information nowadays. Like there is a lot of information uh, for each and every topic, so we might get confused. But the focus area when we are preparing for a company or a startup should be the basics. Now, what are the basics? Basics are that a candidate should be good with the data structures. Data structures are two types. One is linear data structure that contains arrays, string, queue, stack, linked list. So a candidate should be well aware of the basic concepts. How are these functioning, and what is the complexities which they have which is the most suitable data structure for a particular problem which we are solving. These are the basic things in the preparation phase which we have to identify and cover. Second is nonlinear data structure. So generally, learning and practicing linear data structures is easier because the implementation and the like use cases of linear data structures are pretty simple. But when we come to nonlinear data structures, which are trees, graphs, and tries, like the implementation and other things might be little tricky. So to understand nitty-gritty details about nonlinear data structure, we somehow need to know the linear data structures, because if you guys are solving the problems based on trees and graph, then the concepts of queue and stack might come very handy. Like the way we define a tree or a graph, the definition is kind of similar to what we do in linked list. So if your linear data structures are clear, your concepts of linear data structures are very much clear and precise, then you can expect that you will ace and understand the concept of nonlinear data structure, because the fundamental of like the foundation and fundamentals of linear data structure will be very helpful when you are going for nonlinear data structure. So that is one thing, that you have to be very good with linear data structures to prepare for any kind of active like nonlinear data structure. Once you are comfortable and have ample amount of knowledge about your linear data structures, then you can move to nonlinear data structures, which are tries and trees, graphs, and try. Now, when you are done with your data structures, which is linear and non-linear, there are lots of things which comes while we are practicing the questions based on those data structures. Those are called algorithms, which are a set of rules which we generally use to solve a particular problem. So the algorithms are a methodology which we generally use to solve a particular business problem or a coding problem. So these are the things which we should be aware of. We should master a couple of algorithms. Since we guys are targeting MNCs and uh, startups, so every company here and there have a soft corner towards a particular data structures. So for example, if someone has given interview of Microsoft or have read about the interview experience of Microsoft candidates, then you guys might found uh, a pattern that Microsoft has very soft heart towards string questions. So they focus majority on string questions. If you go with Amazon, then they generally focus on graph question mainly. So every company has a similar set of patterns which they generally follows. So to solve those kind of problem, we need to be aware of the algorithms like recursion, then DFS, BFS, searching, sorting, backtracking, divide and conquer, greedy. These are some algorithms which a company expects that when they are interviewing a candidate should be aware of these algorithms. So these are the things which are very basic on which company evaluates. Now, sometimes company goes out of syllabus because that's the general norm in the industry, and they give some kind of scenario. You guys are put in a certain kind of scenario and asked what kind of thing you will be doing if you are in that kind of scenario. That comes under the problem solving part. Like they want to evaluate what kind of thought process you are having, how you'll be approaching a particular problem, and what are the steps you are taking to solve that particular problem. Now, the company might evaluate you guys on your problem solvings. They might give you a scenario, and this can happen when you guys have experience of 1 or 2 years. They might give like for an example, you guys are working with backend, and they can say that the API is very slow, the response time is very slow. What are the key things you'll do to improve the response time? so that the website or that particular API response is faster. So there can be multiple solutions to this particular question problem. They want to know your approach, like what exactly the steps you will be taking to solve a particular problem. Now, point 5 and 6 are relevant only if you have experience. Like if you have at least 1 or 2 years of experience, and you have designed a system, you have worked on database schemas, API design, discussions around what kind of components you'll be using, trade-offs between one component with another one, then these HLD and LLD things are come into place. LLD is low-level design, where company expects that the candidate should be well aware of API design, how we write an API, what are the best practices for API, what kind of response, HTTP responses we have, how we ensure that API is smooth and running. It should be fault tolerant. Uh, it should be consistent. So it depends on business use cases, which you guys can receive from a company for that particular question. And based on that, you have to design an API, or they might ask you to design the database schema or database design, whether it is a SQL database or no SQL database. So these things comes under low level design. And high level design, like they might give you a scenario where you have to design a particular service. Now they might ask you, how will you handle the load? How will you ensure your website is up and running or service is up and running? It is smooth, fault tolerant, and resilient. So these kind of questions comes under HLD. So in HLD, you might expect that the components will be discussed. Your approach towards a particular solution will be discussed with the trade-offs. While in LLD, the design of APIs and databases will be discussed. So, more or less, these are the topics for preparation, which you guys can follow whether you are preparing for a startup or an MNC. Any questions here? Okay, so
Sir,
Ashwini, yeah.
sir, my question is like, sir, we try to solve one question, sir. If it is
Hmm.
not solvable, then we refer to some YouTube or some references. At that time, we I am able to understand the question, but like after 2 3 days, like same question, if I try to solve, like I am literally null. So like, what should I? How to
Okay.
approach the problem?
So literally null as means you don't get the approach which you want to take, or you are numb when you are going for a particular data structures. Like you don't get which kind of data structures you have to use, and what is the approach you have to take. Is this the
Yes.
right assumption? Okay. So in this particular question, what you can do, Harsh, that you can practice, because uh, if you look on a pattern and you think that by solving a particular problem you'll be able to understand the concept, then you have to practice for that, because even most of us face these kind of scenarios, and we are afraid to admit it that we face this, but eventually it happens. I have seen and I have discussed multiple mentees, and they also face the same kind of scenario. Even I have been through this kind of scenario. I have solved problems, but when the question was asked in an interview after 2 3 days, I was blank, because at that time I was not able to understand what exact the question is. So it depends on multiple things, but to answer your question, first thing I will suggest is that practice about that particular concept, because even if you are looking a particular problem, problem might be solved using a algorithm or a data structure. Try to solve multiple problems related to that data structure and algorithm, because there are lots of things. So if you look at a binary search problem, we know a standard binary search problem. If you have to that if array is given sorted and you have to find a element in that, or insertion position, or the start or end position for a binary for a sorted array in to search a particular number. But there are other applications of binary search which we might be not aware of. So practicing will help you in that kind of scenario. So I'll suggest that whenever you are stuck in that kind of pattern, pick up that particular data structure, pick up the kind of problems which are giving you difficult time, and try to solve those problems. You can find like similar kind of problems. So if like generally solve using lead code, then you can find similar kind of problems on lead code. So if you are able to solve one problem, try to solve two, three problems for that particular topic, and try to do that for 3 to 4 days. What we generally do, if we have solved one problem, then we think that we have understood the concept, but there are nitty gritty details, and there are syntaxes which we eventually forget. So I'll suggest to try and practice more and more questions for that data structure and that particular algorithm.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question? Yeah, so Ashwini has one question, that how is the job market these days? Since we have seen lot of layoffs, is it the right time to switch? And Ashwini has 3 years of experience in Java backend in a startup. So if you go on LinkedIn and search on job portal, there are lots of companies which are hiring. No doubt that the constraints are strict nowadays, because due to the demand supply, there are lots of good candidates available in the market. So companies has to raise their bar for hiring. But if you are a good candidate, then you can find an opportunity. So I hope I am able to answer your question, Ashwini. Any other question anyone has? Praveen, there are multiple things which we have to uh, be aware of while like making a resume, and the term which you have used, good resume, might vary from person to person. So for this we can discuss these things in our trial session. You can book the trial session and we can discuss the resume part at there. Any other question related to the preparation topics which we have discussed right now, or we can move to the next slide? Okay. So these are the things which a candidate should be prepared while going to the interview. The next thing is the expectation from a candidate. Now, the companies, when a company hires an employee or a candidate, there are certain expectations which a company has in their mind. The first is that the candidate should be good with the computer science concepts, and the concepts are data structures, algorithms, system design, whether it is a high level or low level. When we talk about the system design part, there comes the trade-off. So trade-off means they might give you a scenario and ask to design a particular approach. Now, a particular component might be more suitable than other one, but you have to justify why are you using that particular thing. So suppose for an example, you are working on an analytics tool, and there you find out that you need to use Elasticsearch instead of other database. Since Elasticsearch is better for analytics, and it is giving fast retrieval for the data, so you have to justify why you are going with Elasticsearch instead of using any other component or database. So when you make these kind of decision, you should have a solid understanding what tool you are using and why you are using, and why it is a better approach or better option than other one. So when we are discussing this, the expectation is that candidates should be aware of trade-offs of components, because in startup, this comes very handy, because you guys are working in a very smaller team and you have to take the decisions. So when you have understanding of multiple things, then trade-off making trade-off becomes very easy. The third thing is that the candidate whom company is interviewing should be uh, uh, should come forward to take the ownership. So you are given a task and you should own that. Generally, in case of startups, startups look for that kind of thing, because there are lots of things which you have to do on your own when you are working with a startup. So ownership is a must when we generally interview for a startup. And last thing is culturally and behavioral fitment. I have seen a lot of people who have aced their technical round, but they were not able to get selected because company somehow felt that they are not culturally fit. The values which a company has are not aligned with the candidates values. So that also we have to keep in mind, that every company has their own set of culture and behavioral definitions. So somewhere the candidate's culture and behavior should align with the company's culture and behavior. So if candidate cross all these bars, then company thinks that he's a good candidate. So these are the expectations a company has from a candidate. So in this, any question anyone has? Okay. Suryas has one question, that how much development should we do? Can you elaborate a bit more on this, Suryas? Exactly what is your question? Okay. Rohan has another question, that should fresher learn system design? Uh, it is not mandatory for a fresher to learn system design, but there are a few companies which ask from candidate about a basic of databases and how they can design a particular table, what are the columns which will be they having, like schema design. So having an idea of low level design won't hamper you at all, because that is the thing you guys will be doing when you join a company as a fresher. You will be given a set of problem, and you guys might be asked to write an API or handle the data. So having an understanding about low level design will improve your chances while going for an interview. But there is no hard and fast rule that you should learn system design as a fresher. Okay, Suresh, so it depends like what kind of area you guys are looking to go. Like there are multiple things which we have to take into consideration. So like if you are looking for web development, then I'll suggest that having and in web development specifically, you are looking for full stack role, then having knowledge about backend, having knowledge about front end, and bit of DevOps will be good. So to prepare for full stack kind of a role, you have to have understanding of every smaller component, like full stack, backend, and sorry, front end, back end, and DevOps, like how you deploy, how you integrate front end with back end. So these kind of things you should be aware of. And the development is like, if you do one particular project which has everything from front end to back end to DevOps, and you are making everything from scratch, then for a single person it might take 2 to 3 months to make a good prototype of a working full stack project. Okay, so we'll move to the next slide. Now, we have discussed like the expectations and the preparation which we have to do for a particular MNC or a startup. Now, the pros and cons of working with a startup. So, when you work in a startup, generally startups has very small team, and the expectations of a startup, when you join a startup, the expectation from a candidate is a bit higher from the startup side. So what things we can expect when we join a startup, that there will be greater learning opportunities. Why? Because most of the time startups are building things from scratch. So when someone build a thing from scratch, you'll be having the business requirement. You have to find out the relevant tools. You have to implement, do a POC related to that here and there, and find out which tool is most suitable based on the business use case, and then you have to implement it. So there will be lots of POCs, lots of things here and there which you'll be doing. So the learning opportunity when you are working with a startup is very great advantage here. Second is when you work in a startup, generally you work on a full-fledged feature from gathering the requirement till the deployment thing. So when you do that kind of thing, the work recognition is better in a startup, because you are owning that particular service or feature on which you are working on. And once that gets deployed and gets traction, then you get a better work recognition. So that is one another thing which you can get in startup. Third thing, as we discussed that since we in startups the teams are smaller and we work end to end, so the ownership is complete. What I mean by complete ownership is that we generally start by gathering the business requirements. We do the design discussion. We create a design for APIs and databases, and what are the components we'll be using at high level to make our service resilient and fault tolerant. Uh, and when we do all these things, we own that particular service or product. It's like a baby child of our mind. So generally when we work in a startup, the ownership which we take while working on a feature is very critical, and that is one thing which we have while working working in a startup. Fourth is multitasking. Sometimes due to the resource crunch or some time crunches, a developer has to wear many hats. A backend developer might be working with DevOps, helping them creating pipelines, writing CI/CD. Then, if there is a critical bug which we need to solve or on a high priority basis, then we might have to work in front end area as a backend developer as well. So there can be multiple things which we need to do, and at the same time we have to discuss with the product to get the requirements. So multiple multitasking is a thing which we generally do when we work in a startup. And when we do all these things, we learn a lot of things on our own. We have to read a lot of documentation of third party tools to integrate with. We need to structure the documentation. So there are lots of things which we do on our own, and that comes under self-taught. So when you work in a startup, you get better learning opportunities, better work recognition. You own the product, you multitask, and there are lots of things which you understand and learn on your own. These are the pros, but when you have to handle these things, it put a toll on your health, whether it is a physical health or mental health. So working in a startup, you might have heard, is a stressful thing, because the demand of a startup ecosystem is that we need to push the releases, we need to make the development faster, and in all these things, sometimes it becomes very stressful thing. When these things become stressful, we can handle for a certain amount of time, but when it happens for a long period of time, there are higher chances that we burn out. Now, burnout means that we won't feel working at all. We want to take some leave. We don't find any motivation to push forward ourselves. So that is the kind of thing which can happen. Uh, the fourth thing is that we generally have long working hours because of tight deadlines and the features which we have to implement. So that is another con which we have. And multitasking is a pro and con here, because when a person do multitasking, the productivity sometimes decreases. So that's the reason I have kept that in pros and cons, because for few people multitasking can be a plus point, whereas for few people it can be a negative point, because few people find it hard while working on more than two or tasks, or maintaining multiple things. So these are the things, or pros and cons, while working with a startup. Any question in this? Okay. The next is the pros and cons with the MNC. Now, when you work with MNC, then the career opportunities are better there, because generally MNCs operates in multiple countries, and they have offices in that particular country at different location, as well as in abroad. So a candidate might feel that internal switch, whether it is inside a country or abroad, are easily available, because most of the companies give priorities when they're hiring for a role to an internal employee. So like the career opportunities internally and abroad are more in MNCs. uh, Second thing, that the MNCs have a environment where we have to do things systematically. So whenever we follow that kind of environment, they have a disciplined approach of work. Like everything will be defined, unlike the working in a startup, where sometimes we have to uh, go and do things which are not bound to the rules. But in MNCs, everything is systematic, and we have to be disciplined to the approach of work which we are taking. Working with MNCs have more perks, like we get more vacation time or some other perks, goodies, interaction. So that is another thing for few people which might be good. Then there are lots of MNCs which provide support for external learning and higher education. They give sabbaticals, they incorporate uh, MBA programs, 1 year MBA programs, and they give access to plural site and other sites to learn and grow to their own colleagues. So that is one thing which MNCs do very often. And since the things are good there, a candidate might feel better work-life balance in an MNC while working for a startup, because of uh, things which are like, because in startup we have to be very vigilant and have multiple ownerships, but here every team works toward a common goal. So they might find better work-life balance here. the things which are not in positive sides for an MNC is that there is a very less exposure towards new tech, because most of the companies, well established companies, have their own proprietary stack. And if you are working on that proprietary stack, then those are very old stacks, and most of the time companies don't feel a need to like upgrade the system, because there is a saying in tech that if something is working, don't touch that, because if we touch that and something happens, something is not working, then uh, uh, the business might get impacted. So that's the reason that most of the time companies don't touch their proprietary stack and they work on it. The third thing is, since the whole company works in a systematic manner, so there is a less recognition and visibility for a person's work. That happens sometimes. So that is one of the negative side while working with an MNC. So any question till now? Okay. So if there is okay, so example of proprietary stack, I'll give an example. I've worked with SAP, and SAP's own language is ABAP. Uh, I'm not sure if you have heard of, but the whole ERP, on which like SAP is the giant in the ERP, and the whole ERP stack is written in the ABAP language. And ABAP is not used outside SAP's ecosystem. So if you are working on ABAP, there are less opportunities which you can find out if you want to move into open source. So that is an example of proprietary tech stack. Similarly, every big company has their own internal language which they use, internal tools which they use. So that restrict the tools and technologies to that particular company itself. That is a proprietary tech stack, Shubham here. Uh, Apurva's question, where we can grow more in MNCs or in startup. So it depends on candidate itself. Like candidate can grow and take opportunities working in an MNC. So if a candidate is working in an MNC and they are not getting good work, then they can ask their managers, they can discuss with team leads to get more work, the kind of work which they want. In startup, no doubt they have to work in different areas, so the learning and growth is no doubt more there. But in MNCs also, they can discuss the pain points which they are facing, and they can, if the manager is uh, uh, good and cooperative enough, then they can work on the things which they want to work. So it's up to the candidate. There is no foundation of growth if you are working in an MNC and startup. Now, one-on-one mentorship at pre-place. So, how I can help you? I'll be honest here because I am coming from a background. I started as a software engineer at SAP and worked in proprietary stack and support roles. And coming from that kind of situation to a development role was very difficult, because we get a lot of things that we have to prepare this way and that way, but I didn't see any kind of resource which shows a transition from one particular proprietary tech stack and service oriented section, customer facing role, to development. So I had to struggle a lot to find the right resources there. And once I figured it out, I was able to start my preparation for the development area. So, if you are coming from that kind of background, I can understand the needs and problems which you guys are having. Uh, and we can openly discuss that. We can work on that. We can identify the skill gaps which you are having while preparation, because if someone is coming from a service based background or someone is coming as a fresher, then the skill gap when you join a company and what you do in college is huge in recent times. So we can discuss what things you should do, what are the tools and technologies you should be aware of and you have to work on, and we can define a timeline, because if we don't have a timeline, then somehow we lack about the preparation which we do. So we can put a timeline that this is the time which we are targeting, and in this particular time we have to finish these things. So we can discuss upscaling and evaluation. Preparation can be a mental toll, so we can discuss the mental challenges which a person faces while preparing for an interview, and we can work on that. And I can provide placement assistant through the network. So if I think and you think that you are prepared enough and you are good to go for the placements, then I can refer you to my network, and this is how we can work on this. One moment. Uh, yeah. So Shubham has one question. How to make most out of it if we are already in a service-based company? What role should we try to have? So it's your personal choice. Like it depends on what you want to do in your career. Some are passionate about data science role. Some are more inclined towards front end role, and some are more inclined towards back end role. So it's inside you which you have to find out. Like until unless you are not clear about what you want to achieve, even a mentor cannot help. So you have to be focused. You have to do your own research that this is the thing which I want, and if once you are clear that this is the role you want, then a mentor can help you in that. But if you are looking for a development kind of role, then in service-based companies, try to discuss the same with your manager and come on board on a project which has some kind of development. Sudeep, is it better option to switch from a MNC to a startup? So if you are working in an MNC and you're not getting development opportunities, and if you want to work on those things, then it's better option to switch from MNC to startup, because you'll be learning a lot there, uh, until unless you are not getting opportunity. Uh, if you are getting the opportunities to work on development side, then you have to do a SWOT analysis for that, like which option suits better to you, what you want. Because if you are going in a startup, then startup also ask commitments, and sometimes uh, you have to manage things on your own initially, because you have to work in a fast-paced environment. MNCs generally don't have that fast environment, but in startup, the environment in which generally developer work is very fast. So that is one thing which you have to understand. And if you're working in an MNC, then product-based companies and MNCs are the best if you are looking for growth and development and opportunity wise. Because if you look at the job scenarios, then most of the jobs, and if you are like preparing and in the transition or giving interviews, then you might have seen that from which kind of background you come, whether it is a product based and service based. So if you are from a product based company, then the chances of getting selected for an interview are higher. It's not that you won't get selected being a service based employee, but the probability and the exposures which you get when you are in product based companies are higher than what you get from service based companies. And is there any difference working as a Node.js developer in service based uh, versus Node.js developer in startup or MNC? If you are in development, then the main difference which you can find out is the work environment, how a company is working, what kind of project you are working. So in service-based companies, generally you get the projects which are outsourced, but in startups and MNCs, you have to build things on your own based on the business use cases. So difference comes on the business use cases and the kind of environment. But if the development wise, both the things are same. It's just the cultural and the development thing is different. So the next thing is how can I help you guys is that we can have a industry standard resume. So I can help you in that. I can review your resume. I can provide you the resources if you don't have any resource or you're lacking somewhere. If you are struggling with the resources and not able to understand a particular data structure concept, then I can help you understand that as well. I can help you with the doubt sessions, with the mock interviews, or any ad hoc general queries which you guys have. So this is the thing which I can help you if you go for long-term mentorship. And if you guys have any questions and want to book a trial session, you can go to preplaced app.preplaced.in, search with my name, and you can book a free trial session from there. So, any questions? Uh, so, growth wise in learnings, will it be same in both the above case? Are you talking about startup and MNC or product based or service based? Okay, so growth wise, I'll talk from my personal experience. If someone is okay, service based versus product based, then uh, growth wise, product based companies are better because they always have some kind of work for you. In service based, I have seen that you guys, if someone is in the service based company and they are working on a project. Once the project is finished, they have to be vigilant to get on board on the next available product project. It might take some time, sometimes 15 days, sometimes 2 to 3 months as well. So if you are looking growth wise in learnings, then product based companies are way better, whether it is an MNC or a startup from service based companies. Okay, so if you guys have any more questions, you can book a free trial session and we can discuss the problems and concerns which you have there. Uh, Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. Have a good
Uh,
day. Bye.
Thanks, Gaurav, for this interactive session. I'm sure a lot of mentees were able to gain knowledge out of this. And everybody, we have posted links of Gaurav's profile at Preplace. You can just go ahead and book a free trial session with Gaurav for 30 minutes and discuss your long term goals with him to understand how he'll be able to help you out. So, once again, thanks everyone for joining this session. And it was really great, Gaurav, this particular session from your side.
Yeah. Thanks. Have a good day. Thanks, everyone. Bye.